we're going to kind of gear this session, obviously, around getting ready for the college rugby fair and event. So it's going to be a little specific to that. But again, if you have other questions that are outside of this, please feel free to put that in the Q&A. I'll, kind of go through every couple slides. I'll make sure to stop and see if there's any questions that we can address. Okay. So some special thanks, some of my supporters that help me do all the things that I do with college planning and college rugby. Arbor Bridge is my preferred test prep provider. So they are an absolutely fabulous premier test prep company. They do everything from obviously SAT, ACT prep to AP and just regular subject test or just regular subject tutoring. So if you need help with, kind of the general math, history, science, anything like that, they're a great partner to have. So I'm happy to send you some information if you're looking for some help with that. And also Akuma Sports has been wonderful, providing some awesome gear. And if your team is looking for some new kit, bags, things like that, Akuma is a great one. They have some great shorts and jerseys and things like that. So again, I will make sure to send out some contact information if you are looking for some new stuff for your team. And of course, I'm covering my own picture, but there I am. A little bit of background about me. I've been a professional college consultant since 2009. So this is what I do. I work with families all over the world talking about college planning and especially about rugby. I was a player for many years and then moved on into the referee role. At this point, I am no longer an active referee, but I am mostly active as a World Rugby educator. So I do a lot of the referee certification courses and things like that, which is really exciting. I just did one out in Texas. So that's kind of where my rugby path has led me. I'm based in Colorado. We are a rugby family. So that's my husband right there. He is a rugby player as well. He actually just played in his college. They had their 50th anniversary. So he went back for an alumni weekend. So just so you know, rugby never stops. It just keeps going. So he's still an active member of his alumni group. And my daughter started playing flag. So that's been really fun for us to see her getting involved in rugby as well. And now we're seeing it from your standpoint too. Like we're now parents kind of starting at the beginning of her sporting career. So that's really fun for us. So about the Rugger's Edge, if this is the first time you've ever listened in on a session or met me, obviously our bread and butter, what we do is some individual college consulting, but we obviously also do many group seminars. I'm doing this one for you guys today. Next week, I do one for not Rugby Canada, but Vancouver, that Rugby BC area. They're having a session as well to talk about college planning. So lots of group seminars to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page, and we try to bust as many myths out there as possible so everyone knows what they're getting into. And then obviously I also work with a lot of college programs and help them understand how to best recruit, how to build their programs and kind of best practices and things like that. Many of our students have gone on to some of the biggest names in college rugby, but also many of the up and coming ones. So it's really exciting to see, even in the like 10 plus years I've been doing this, to see, how some of the programs have grown that used to, never be known as a rugby program, and now they are. So that's what's really exciting about college rugby is it's always changing. There's always new things happening. So all of you who are here this evening, you're really hitting college rugby at a sweet spot. Unlike some of the traditional sports that have been around for a really long time, college rugby is evolving and it's at a really exciting point. So I am so glad you're here to learn all about it. Okay, so what we're going to focus on right now, at least, is just kind of thinking about the college fair. So if you've never been to a kind of a normal standard college fair, you're going to walk into a room. There's going to be many, many tables set up. There's going to be representatives behind each of them that are going to be prepared and really, really excited to meet with your student athlete. And it's a little bit different because obviously this is geared specifically to rugby players, which will be nice. I think it's a little less overwhelming than kind of those big, massive ones that are like, I've been to some here in Denver that are like 300-400 colleges, and it's almost like you don't know where to start. So the nice thing is when you're walking into this event, you specifically know we're going to be coming in here to talk about college rugby. So a couple of things, some things to consider in terms of college fair dues. So number one, I would want you prior, to going to the fair is to be prepared. So one of those things is once KJ gets a list of who's going to be there, take a look at that list. So if you know that XYZ college is going to be there, I would do some research ahead of time. I would go on those schools' websites. I would take a look at what the rugby program looks like, what majors they have, so that you don't just come in expecting them to tell you everything, right? Like you're going in there with the expectation that you've done a little bit of research. You're there to learn more, but you're not going in there just cold. Number two, I would go in with a resume if possible. You can find a template on my website. So on ruggersedge.com, under resources or what we do, there is a link there for building a resume. I think it's really helpful, especially if you are a junior, for you to come in with a resume that has all of your pertinent information. So you can always either hand it to them, or once you get that representative's email, you can also forward it on to them. But obviously we want to make a connection. The college fair, the point of it is it's a really nice meeting spot for these coaches to meet with many players, and for many players to also meet with many coaches. So while you're there, you want to kind of get the best bang for your buck, right? You want to make sure to have some value. So bring your resume, be able to talk to these coaches, hand something to them so that they remember you, and you guys can make sure to continue the conversation even after the event. All right, the next thing, and this is what the picture is, I really recommend dressing appropriately. So think about this. If this is, I don't know if this will be your first time, but it's a little bit like an interview. So especially if you're meeting college coaches for the first time, you want to make a good impression. So again, I'm not expecting, student athletes to show up in a suit and tie, but you can see here in these pictures, these examples, we want to look like, pretty put together, team athlete, right? So most of the time you have students might have like a nice sports polo, or, kind of like this warm up suit, something like that, so that it looks organized, you look professional, and that you're serious about this prospect. You're not just showing up, in your flip-flops and, I don't know, torn jeans, things like that, right? So it is very similar to a job interview. So we do want to make sure to show up and give those coaches the respect that they deserve. I also really want to encourage you, when you show up to this event, to have an open mind, right? So let's say prior to the event, you see the list of, the 20, 30, whatever, X amount of programs that are going to be there. If you go in going, I've never heard of those programs, I'm not going to go talk to them. Like, I've never heard. I would prefer you go talk to everyone. I can't tell you how many students start off with me, and they might say in the beginning, I'm only looking for small colleges with this major in this area. And then, as they start to explore and start to think about what really matters to them, you might find they're willing to consider a medium-sized school or a large school, or in an area that they weren't considering at first, because some of the other factors actually matched more appropriately than what they are looking for. So definitely kind of go into this with an open mind, look at some of those programs that are going to be there. And again, because we go back to number one, do some research ahead of time. Say, hey, I've never heard of this college. Maybe I should take a look, and at the very least, explore, see if it might be a fit for what you're looking for. While you're there. So as you approach, a table and you're about to talk to a coach or representative, ask some questions. Okay. So I know some students, it's a little bit awkward to go in, but, be engaged, right? So the coaches or whoever is going to be there, they are there to talk to you. They're really excited to meet you and hopefully see if you're going to be a good fit for their team. So be engaged, be positive. You want to be energetic, they are there all day to, hopefully make a connection with you. So, don't be nervous. I have a lot of students say, oh my gosh, it's so nerve-wracking to go meet coaches. They're nervous too, right? So they want to make a good impression on you. So go in and be prepared. I'm going to talk about questions in a minute, but have a few in mind that you want to make sure that when you're in front of them, you get a chance to get those questions answered, because again, it all boils down to a good fit. So part of this is, yes, they're assessing you a little bit, but this is also your chance to assess these programs and see if it's a good fit for you. And lastly, make sure that you follow up. So part of that is, okay, we go up and I meet Susie Smith from X University. We have a great conversation. Get a business card or jot down their email address, or how can you connect after? When you get home from the fair, make sure you send an email. Dear Coach Smith, it was so nice to meet you at the college fair. I'm really interested in learning more about your school. Here's my rugby resume again. Here's also my upcoming rugby schedule. Will you be at any of these tournaments? I'd love to stay, in contact. Okay. So what I don't want you to do is think, okay, if I go to the college fair, great, like I'm done, right? My job is done. No, this is really just a starting point. Okay. And like your path to recruitment is fairly long. So generally speaking, it may start kind of beginning of the calendar year, January, February, March, but it's going to extend all the way till about now, October. My current seniors, this is when kind of that recruitment window starts to end and we start seeing offers and things like that. Okay. So it's a bit of a long road. So you want to make sure to remember that this college fair and this event, or anytime you meet a coach, it's always just the first step. So it's up to you to continue to follow and kind of follow up with them and keep that ping pong game of communication going. Okay. I am going to stop my share for just a quick question and just see if anyone has any questions about what I've said so far. Okay, perfect. All right, it looks like we're doing good. So, okay, I'm gonna go back and share my screen. All right. So, oops. Okay. Oh, and sorry. Last thing here. Once you followed up, obviously you get home, have a conversation with your family. Okay. So making a decision about where you're going to go to college, where you're going to play rugby, all those things. This is not something you should keep to yourself. It should definitely be a conversation. It also helps you remember all the things that you talk. I mean, you're gonna realize when when you start doing visits and you start talking to coaches, they're all gonna kind of blend together, right? So it's really, really helpful for you to go home and say, mom or dad or whoever you're talking to, and just say, oh, you know what? I was really, really excited about these 5 colleges, and this is why, right? And if you even were smart enough to have some notes like on your phone or in a notepad that you can refer back to and say, oh, I really love talking to that one coach, Susie, who was at this university. They were talking about this kind of an exchange program where I could then play in Ireland for a semester, and then I could study this while I'm there. Like, make sure you have, some reasons why you like some of those colleges that you can discuss with your family. Okay. Here is it's a very small list. There's many, many more you could go with. But if you're curious, like when you're talking to a coach, what are some questions you could ask, especially because you're going to hear coaches say, do you have questions for me? And if you say, well, no, and then you just keep moving on, it's harder for them to remember you, right? So part of this is we want to create some engagement. We want some relationship building here. So here's just some questions you could ask, right? So what are some of the admission requirements for the athlete, right? So is it different than for a non-athlete? Are there new developments in your program in the next year, 5 years? So for example, let's say there's a program who says, hey, by the way, we have a new endowment coming. We're going to be able to have scholarships next year, or we are going to be able to be building a new field, or we are breaking ground on this new building on our campus. Those are all things that might be important to you. That last question there too, does your program host a summer camp or a clinic? Again, that really leads mostly back to those programs that are truly in a position to recruit. If they have a summer camp, if they have a winter clinic, all of those things are good for you to know that if you're able to attend, that might be able to help you stand out in the recruiting process. Now, I know some of the fairs, they may not have the actual coach there. They might have current or alumni players that are there to represent that program. I still think these are great people to talk to. They're the best people to give you the most unpolished look at what, being a student athlete is going to be like at this school. So, kind of start asking them. It doesn't have to be rugby specific, but, like, how many classes when you were there did you take that was taught by a professor versus a TA? What do students do on the weekends? Like, what is it like? So some campuses are bustling on the weekends. There's always something to do and all the students stay around campus. Other places tend to be maybe a bit more commuter where everyone kind of leaves. So these are all pieces of one of the factors of deciding if it's a good fit is, what does the campus feel like? And is it going to be a good fit for you? Those current and alumni players are great people to ask these questions. One of my favorite questions to ask, I actually didn't put it on the screen, but one of my favorite questions I always ask if I'm talking to a current or alumni player is, if there was one thing you could change about this school, what would it be? I think that's a very telling answer. What they say is really hard. I mean, you can kind of come up with very nice answers to most questions, but if you're asking them what they would change, um, that's going to give you a really good insight into, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that this school was 80% Greek, meaning mostly everybody was in a sorority or fraternity. Not that that's good or bad, but it's good for you to be aware of what does that school maybe value, what are the things the student body values, and does that match with what you're looking for? Okay, so again, these are just, it's a handful of questions. There's definitely more. They're in my playbook, or they're also, I mean, you can Google, like there's lots of different types of questions. You don't have to grill a coach. Pick a couple questions you think are important to you, and then when you're meeting with them, feel free to ask them. Okay. I'm gonna stop because it looks like I have some questions here. Oh, okay. So someone asked when the college fair is. I think KJ can probably answer that. I believe it's in February, so I'm sure she'll send that out. And then, are there college fairs in New Jersey to look for? So that's a really good question. So outside of this rugby one that we're kind of talking about, a really good place to look, and I can send out the link too, but there's a group called NACAC. It's the National Association for College Admission Counselors. They host a national one. So usually those are the really big ones, like I was saying, that are like 400 or 500 colleges. So you can look on the NACAC website. They would list where those national college fairs are, or also speak with your high school counselor. They would probably be most aware of, any local regional, kind of college fair. So like here in Colorado, next week, sometime in the next like week or two, we have something called ROAR, which is like a regional officers a college fair. So that's just for like regional officers that are here. So that's like a smaller college fair. So if you're looking just to expand your knowledge, those are good places to approach as well. I just wouldn't maybe have the specifics of of rugby. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, so now we know kind of how to start that conversation, how to have some questions with those coaches, right? Okay, so some don'ts, right? So here's a picture of, what I was saying. Don't show up at the fair like this, right? So, but number one, don't be late, right? So prior to this, KJ, Rugby New Jersey is going to be sending over lots of details. Look at those details beforehand. Have a plan in place. How are you going to get there? Is there issues with parking? Like, I don't know if there's weather. I mean, whatever the case may be, just like anything, if this was a game, you would prepare, right? So show up on time, especially if KJ, I don't know if, is there going to be a combine portion? Like, kind of know what the agenda is going to be like, so that you can prepare for how the day is going to go.
Yes, there will be a combine, and the college fair will be, going on throughout the day. You sign up for a slot for the combine, so then you could either go to the colleges before or thereafter.
Perfect.
Very organized. That day will probably start around 9 a.m. Probably within, 2.5 hours, you can do the combine as well as get through the college fair.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, so once so let's say you sign up for a spot, if you know ahead of time you're doing the combine first thing, just like a game, I mean, prepare, right? Like, eat the right breakfast, hydrate, like all those things, especially if you're getting some testing done, you want to have good numbers that you can then report back to the coaches. Again, just kind of know all those details. How's your day going to lay out? Are you doing the fair first and then doing the combine pieces? Are you doing combine first, then the fair? Just kind of start planning out what that might look like for you. Number two, don't get nervous. So like I mentioned earlier, these coaches, scouts, whoever's going to be there, they're coming because they're excited to meet you. They need to build their program. You are a huge piece of it. So they're really excited to be there. Don't be nervous. It's just rugby. It's, we're going to talk about rugby. Everyone wants to do it. Everyone wants to be there. So, just kind of go in with that frame of mind, that it's exciting. We're going to be talking about different places you could go and you're exploring. Don't get too, I guess, frazzled about the whole situation. They're there for you. Okay. So they want the best for you. They're not there to nitpick and go, oh my gosh, like he didn't get the time that I thought he would get. You know, everyone's hoping that you're going to do the best you can, and they're there to root you on. Okay. Number two, obviously, don't be unprofessional. This is two things. Obviously, with the appearance, as you can see in those pictures, I know I'm kind of blocking it right there, but don't be unprofessional in your appearance, but also don't be unprofessional in your communication, right? So when you're meeting a coach, it's, you know, hi, Coach so-and-so, my name is Susie, nice to meet you, right? And if you haven't ever done that, practice with your parents and your coaches and your friends, but practice some introductions. You know, I'm a junior at Morristown. I've been playing rugby with this, you know, with this group for X number of years. I'm a flanker. I'm really excited to learn more about your school. Like it's a little bit, if you've ever heard anyone talk about like an elevator pitch, a little bit like that, but for you as a student. So just quickly for them to understand what year in school are you, maybe what you're interested in majoring, just to get the conversation going. Okay. But again, professional communication, introduce yourself, shake a hand, look them in the eye, all of those things that we would expect from really like a job interview. Okay. Don't ask questions that are easy to find answers to. Okay, so what I mean by that is you wouldn't go up to a rep and say, do you have a business major? When either A, it's on their website, or a lot of times they have a handout in front that just says what their majors are. If you have the 5-10 minutes to talk to somebody, use that time to ask those questions we just talked about on that last slide, right? Ask questions that are not easy to find, the ones that, you know, hey, if you could look that up later, like where are you located? I mean, you can find that later. You have a person in front of you, you want to ask the hard stuff. Okay. So make sure ahead of time, you again, plan out what are some of the questions you want to have asked. That's really going to make a difference in you making a choice between this college and this college. Don't spend your time just hanging out with your friends. Okay. So the point of this college fair, again, to bring coaches together with players, players with coaches. It's not just to get a social time with, you know, with your buddies. Okay. So your friends might be there, say hi to them, but like have a goal in mind. The goal is to go around, meet coaches, learn about different programs, you know, participate in the combine. So it's not there to kind of goof off and things like that. I've certainly seen when that's happened. And I mean, it's not awful, but it's, you're kind of wasting your time. You're wasting your opportunity with these coaches. Okay. If you're going with a parent, if you're going with the student, do not let your parents do all the talking. Parents, I would even advise you can kind of hang back, let your student take the lead. Let them go around, ask questions. You can go around on your own maybe and ask questions, but don't kind of hover behind the student. It's good practice for the student, you know, especially if they're younger. So if you've got a freshman or a sophomore, it's good practice, you know, even if it's awkward in the beginning, like let them kind of take the lead to go around, ask questions, learn about different colleges, things like that. Okay. And the last don't think it's too early. So, you know, even if you've got, say, one student who's in 10th grade and you've got another who's in 8th grade, I would encourage the 8th grader to go too. It's never too early. I'm not saying stress and go crazy with college planning, but just start thinking about it, right? And go, oh, I've had a lot of 8th graders, you know, go to an event like this and say, wow, I had no idea there are so many options. So at least kind of also helps motivate, right? It kind of helps students start thinking, wow, like I could really do that. I could go to college and I could play rugby. I'm going to make so many great friends. I am going to have a great time. It kind of helps kind of put those pieces together for them. So again, it's never too early. I think it's great to at least start thinking and having those conversations. The drive home from an event like this is always really wonderful. I think it opens up a lot of questions and dialogue. So it doesn't always feel like the parent is pushing the student towards doing these things. The student hopefully is getting excited, saying, wow, I talked to that coach and he was so excited to talk to me and I could really play on that team. I'm really excited about this process, right? So that's kind of what we're hoping will come from an event like this. Okay. So here's just some resources ahead of time. So, I mean, number one, KJ kind of showed, I had a copy of the newest Rutgers Edge playbook. So that's actually an old cover. This is the newest one. So this one is available online that you can purchase. It's a good step-by-step guide if you're kind of more of a do-it-yourselfer, kind of walks you through everything that you need to do if you want to go through the recruitment process, different lists of different colleges that I think are really good with rugby, but also specific majors, things like that to kind of help whittle down that list for you. And here are some other, basic resources I would really, really recommend. The FISC Guide to Colleges is great. I have a copy. It's sitting right here at my desk. I probably refer to it at least 2 to 3 times a week. So it's really wonderful. If you've not ever looked at the College Board Search Colleges engine, that's also really good if you're kind of just starting out building your college list, or you're starting to figure out, okay, I want to go to certain colleges with this major. You can see which colleges kind of fit that. And then you can compare to the list that's coming to the fair. And you can see, okay, well, at least I already know ahead of time those colleges have my major. Those are the ones I'm going to target to go talk to those specific representatives. Okay. We're obviously not spending a lot of time on this today, but if you're a junior, I'm sure testing is kind of in the background. You're starting to think about that because it could play a role for you. Please make sure you do some test prep. Okay, so there's a couple different free options. So ACT has one, and obviously SAT has a Khan Academy. Just make sure if that, obviously if testing is going to be a piece of the puzzle for you, take advantage of at least some free resources to get yourself prepared. It can become a really big deal, especially if you are being recruited. Many, especially on the NCAA side, testing and your test scores can become part of the process, whether or not you're eligible. So just kind of keep that part in mind. Make sure to connect with us. We have a newsletter that comes out every month that has lots of information for you. We have a Facebook page. And then also, let me help you. So I offer a free 30-minute consultation, learn more about your family, share what I do, see if it's a good fit. Currently, right now, I'm working with seniors. We're trying to wrap up lots and lots of applications to hit many early deadlines. If you are a senior or know a senior, I have a couple of slots left to work with seniors on application review and essays and things like that. So feel free to contact me about that. And again, this is my contact information. So you can reach out to me anytime. If you have questions after today, obviously sign up for that newsletter Facebook page. And then what we're going to do is I want to open this up to questions. So this is your time now. If there's anything I didn't cover specifically, this is your time to ask. So I do want to make sure. So hang on, let's see.
Karen, I see a question about D1 rugby in the chat.
Got it. Okay, so I'll read out the question. So I assume Division I is a big jump competition-wise from club. Does D1 offer money? Notice Notre Dame just went D1. Any idea if Notre Dame will still have a club team? So maybe I'm going to clarify. I'm guessing you're talking about University of Notre Dame. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. You can be a club and be Division I. Okay, so St. Mary's College is a club program and they're a D1A program. So just because they're D1 doesn't necessarily mean they are not a club. I don't know how else to explain that. But essentially you don't have to be varsity basically. And most programs actually aren't, right? So like Indiana or like Wisconsin, those are all D1 programs, but they're club. So I don't know if that answers your question, at least for that part. I think there is potentially a jump if you go from varsity, from club to varsity. So, and this is in that College Rugby 101 webinar as well, but I'll just kind of like lay it out a little bit just to make sure you all are clear. But a varsity program is, part of that school's intercollegiate athletics department, right? So if we're looking at a certain school like Furman University, if you were to go to their school and you go to their athletics page, you would see that rugby is underneath that. So alongside, say, baseball or volleyball or football, kind of the traditional sports, meaning they answer to an athletic director, they answer to an athletic department. So generally the competition level at a varsity team like that, an intercollegiate sport, tends to be higher than club, right? Because they're obviously investing a lot of resources to that team. You've got coaches, you've got facilities, strength and conditioning, and all those sorts of things, right? What you would expect from a varsity team. So that's one angle to consider, is that the step up from club to varsity potentially is higher. I think if you're talking specifically about Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, I think between the three, there tends to be obviously some bigger differences. If you're going for the men, like D1A, or for the women, if you're doing NCAA Division 1 or like a D1 Elite or something like that, obviously the competition level is much higher. So then you are kind of expecting that it's a bigger jump of time commitment and level of players, right? You're going to have bigger players, you're going to have more contact, more competition for positions and things like that. Let me make sure I'm answering the big question. Okay, so if a program goes varsity, so and maybe this person can kind of clarify this question, but if this team goes varsity, generally speaking, they're not also going to have a club team. Okay, so usually you either have a club team or you have a varsity team, but you don't have both. Now, sometimes they'll have a varsity team that within that one, you might have carry two rosters, right? You might have an A side and a B side. So that might happen. But generally, if you kind of push to have the money towards varsity, you're not always going to, keep having that club program around as well. If I didn't answer your question, type more in there and then I can answer that for you.
I will jump in just one thing
Yeah.
because you did notice Notre Dame in there. Remember, there's Notre Dame University and Notre Dame College.
Yep.
Two different schools, two different types of programs. So you may want to look into them a little bit closer.
Yep. So yeah, that's what I wasn't. So Notre Dame College, which is in Ohio, that's a varsity team. And University of Notre Dame is still a club. They get some fairly good support from a college, but they're still not varsity. So there's still definitely a little bit of a difference there. There's someone who's asking, is there a specific one for rugby in New Jersey? So yes, I mean, that's what we're talking about, is that there will be a specific college fair event and combine for New Jersey. So that's what Rugby New Jersey will be sharing that information. So that is definitely something you should pay attention to. I do want to mention here, I've got someone on here who is grade 12. I often get calls now from grade 12 and they're wondering if they're too late. I will say, if you are really hoping for like a varsity program with recruitment, it's not too late, but you're getting close to it. So if you're just now starting to think about whether or not you could be recruited, have scholarship, have admission help, I mean, you need to get on it and start talking to coaches now. If you're hoping to just kind of apply, get in and walk onto a club team, that's not a big deal. But if you were hoping for, being a part of an intercollegiate program, like today is the day. Like I would start filling out recruit forms. I would start contacting coaches, ASAP. I wouldn't wait until the event to talk to coaches, because by then, a lot of times, a lot of those offers and things are already done. Okay, so just kind of know that. And then if you're grade 11, you're already starting to think about your timeline, right? So you're thinking that second semester of your junior year, that is when the bulk of communication kind of starts, and it kind of keeps rolling into the summer. Summer is, typically if you're doing tournaments, if you are going to camps, things like that. And then really the fall is when you're going to see, like, the September, October timeframe is usually when you start seeing offers, being made, and you're making decisions about where you want to go, what kind of scholarship offers, things like that. So juniors, you're like right in the perfect spot to start planning what's going to be happening kind of that second semester through the summer. Okay. KJ, any questions that you typically get?
Not really. I mean, the best advice I could say is, if you're interested in a school, contact the coach, contact the admission department of the school, do your homework, research it, make a visit. The bottom line is, this is where you're going to receive your education, and education comes first. You have to feel comfortable within the school. And if rugby is a part of you and you want it to be part of your college experience, then you need to find the right place to, make both pieces work together. There are a lot of colleges out there. There's a place for everyone. And there's a lot of college rugby programs out there as well. So, you got to get on it and start looking.
Yeah, I would also mention, and in case if there's participants on here that have never been to a combine, a really good reason to go. I mean, you'll see on that rugby resume template that I have, at the very top, many of the recruit questionnaires will ask these things too, which is why I think it's a great service that Rugby New Jersey does this. But it's a way for you to get some of those, those times that they're asking for. So things like, and KJ, you can probably clarify this, but the last time I was there, it was like, you could get your, like your vertical, you can get, like I don't know, like a dash time or a beep test time or a yo-yo or something like that. And those are all things that can then be reported to the coaches. So it kind of gives them an idea of, what your fitness level is like, how strong are you, how quick are you, like all those sorts of things. So again, like if this is your first time going to the combine, don't be nervous, but do your best athletically. It'd be great for you to be able to perform, right? So that you can then report to the coaches, these are my stats, and wow, like this student's actually like really fast, or they're really fit, or whatever the case may be. Okay, so okay, so question, what are the divisions of rugby? Boston College is D1A. I was told University of Notre Dame went D1. Is D1 higher? Okay, no. So yeah, so this is what gets confusing, right? Because typically when we think of the divisions, we're thinking about NCAA divisions. Men's rugby doesn't follow NCAA divisions, okay? Women's rugby sort of does, but also sort of doesn't, because they just have an emerging group. That's a different story. But so let's focus on the men. The divisions that we have for the men, we have D1A, D1AA, Division II, and then essentially a small college Division III group. Okay, so there's teams that are in D1A. Those tend to be the programs that like that are maybe that most people have heard of. So like you have the Penn States, you have St. Bonaventure, UCLA, things like that, Army. And you can see there's a variety of different programs, right? They're kind of all over the country, and then you have some small colleges that are D1A. You also have some big ones that are also D1A. Those tend to be the most competitive because, as you can see, in order to be a part of this league, you have to travel a lot. You have to play. So you're investing a lot of time, money, energy, things like that. So you are going to see a higher level of competition than, say, D1AA. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. It's certainly going to be whatever is going to be a good fit for your student. So something that I tell a lot of students too is if they're not really sure, look online, right? So the great thing about obviously the old interwebs, like you can go on a YouTube and you can watch the D1A finals. You can see the D1AA finals. You can kind of see the difference in what those teams look like. And then you can ask your child, and most students are really, really good at assessing, do I feel like I could play on that team? Could I fight for a starting spot on that team? Or would I ride the bench for 3 years and maybe get my shot as a senior? You can look at rosters. You can see, okay, if I'm normally a prop and I look at what that starting prop looks like, and they are 6'3", 275 pounds, and I am 5'10" and 160, like how likely am I going to beat out that type of a player for that starting spot, right? So some of it is a little bit of early assessment, kind of seeing where you fit, but it is helpful to understand that. I mean, kind of from a baseline, just so you understand the D1A, D1AA, D2, and then small college. Every college can choose what division they want to be in. So if Boston College is D1A this year, they theoretically in 2 years, they could say, you know what, we're getting our butts kicked. We don't want to be D1A anymore. They could drop down to D1AA. Same with teams that are D1AA, they can move up. So if University of Notre Dame was D1, I think they were independent. So if they chose to be in D1A, it just means they've decided now, they put their hand up and they said, look, we want to compete in that level. We want to be a part of this. Essentially, it's like a conference. So they're saying, we want to be a part of this. We want to fight for a D1A national championship because there's a D1AA national championship. I mean, there's championships are everything. That's 15s, because then you have different divisions for Division 2 as well. So I don't want to confuse you too much. I don't know if I answered your question. But I mean, the highest level of competition broadly would be D1A. Although I will say that it's certainly very competitive within each Division 2. Okay. All right. Any other last questions while I had, oh, another question. Great. The question is, are most college rugby teams 15s or 7s or both? Great question. Most college teams, I would say that their focus is 15s. So the college game in general, the focus tends to be 15s. Most do have a 7s team, but it may not be their focus, right? So think about like, a lot of it also depends on weather. So you might see some teams, like right now, the East Coast, their 15 schedule is happening now. They'll take a break through the winter. They'll maybe pick up some 7s in the spring, and then they'll compete in the national championship for 7s, but really kind of like late May, June, that kind of time frame. But their focus is in 7s, right? Like it's, hey, if we end up having a great group, we want to do 7s, we will do that. But I mean, really what they're gunning for usually is like what that 15s title looks like. And that's a great question, right? So like, as you're going to this fair and you're talking to coaches, that's a great question to have is, do you have a 15s and 7s team? How selective is that 7 squad? You know, does everyone participate? Is it through a selection process? Like, what would that look like? So some teams have a more competitive 7s team because it's smaller, versus 15s, right? So that's also good to know too, is, hey, our 15s wasn't great, but in 7s, we made it all the way to the national championship. So that's something to keep in mind as well. It's a great question to have. Okay. And let's see. All right, so which teams are D1, which teams recruit players? Okay, so this is like a much longer conversation. I mean, one of the best places to start looking, you know, number one, I wouldn't focus on, again, the D1. I would focus on figuring out your list of schools first, based on a number of factors separate from rugby. Okay, so kind of like what KJ is saying, I really tell all of my students to operate on a broken leg philosophy. Would you go to this school if you broke your leg the first week of school? You know, does it have your major? Does it fit everything else you're looking for? So to start building your list off of who's D1, I just think is the wrong path. Okay. So I would first build your list with all the other factors first, and then see what kind of rugby they have. My playbook is a great place to start that lists all the programs that are varsity, the ones that offer scholarship, the ones that don't, you know, that sort of thing. So that might be a really good place to start if that's what you're looking for. But again, I don't have the full list of D1, to be very honest. On another slide I have for the Rugby 101, even USA Rugby doesn't have a complete list, because we have teams that have signed up but then never rostered anyone. We have teams that competed but also never registered. So it's never a full list. But if you look at the different governing bodies, so like NCR, National College Rugby, they'll list many of their teams. That's a separate conference than, say, ACRA or CRAA. Those are different conferences that manage those teams. They would list what teams they have as well. Okay. And I'll take, let's see, couple questions. Do students play on both or usually one? It's totally up to the student, and again, up to the team. So I think that's something that you would ask those coaches, right? So what is the makeup of this team? Because some teams, only half the team plays 7s, and the other half, you know, the props are like, we're not playing 7s. Some are like, we all play 7s. We have multiple 7s teams. So that's going to be a question for the coach. And someone said, where do I find info about the college fair? So again, Rugby New Jersey will be sharing that information. KJ, you can probably talk about that. I'm guessing it will be shared through like newsletters and website and social media. So you'll find out about that. And then last question here that I'll address. Can Ivy League teams recruit players for scholarships? So no, Ivy League, across all their sports, they do not recruit any players for scholarships. So they have no money for athletics. Okay, so that will kind of cut that. On the women's side, they can for some of those teams. So Harvard, Dartmouth, Brown, and Princeton, they can recruit. But even then, there's no scholarship. So that was a great question. KJ, I will just head it on over to you. If there's any last comments you want to say about people to kind of stay tuned for information about the fair and things like, because there's a couple questions about that. So if you want to just clarify, I think that'd be really good. If anyone has any extra questions, again, you can reach out to me. My direct email is just Karen@ruggersedge.com. I will send you this recording and some more details as well if you've registered for the webinar.
Okay. Well, Karen, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. I certainly encourage everyone to reach out to Karen, if not for a consultation, for further consultation to really help with this process. A good start to that would be the college playbook. As far as the college fair goes, we are anticipating having it in February. I'm hesitant to say the date, but I will, but please, it's not confirmed yet. It's looking like, or we hope it will be, on February 11th. It's a Sunday. But you know, that information will be coming out within our newsletters and on our social media pages within the next 2 weeks. We're just waiting on a Sports Performance Lab to really nail down the date for us. So we look forward to seeing you then. Right now, those of you who are playing sevens, we wish you a safe and competitive season. Certainly put your nose in the books, get your schoolwork done, and have a safe holiday season, as it'll be here before you know it.
I know.
Thank you again.
Oh, February. And I'm like, oh, wait, hang on. Like, we're already over. It's probably going to come faster than I think. So yes, everyone, it was so lovely to, you know, kind of meet you online. Please feel free to reach out if you have other questions, but thank you for spending your evening with me. If you have other questions, hopefully I will talk to you soon, and have a great evening. Thanks, KJ. Thanks, Rugby New Jersey.
Thank you.